Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. My name is Reed. Along with me is Mike. Mike, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm bringing the stacks of comics. Every time I look at those, I think I need to go in a box. But, we're called two guys in a stack of comics, so there should always be some stacks
Something,
somewhere
someone
lurking in the background, right?
for sure. Um, Fun one for us today, or at least one that kind of relates to something that took place in Marvel Comics, and um, we can do the negative piece of it because it's there for this particular one. But I think it talks larger. What we and I are going to do is kind of tackle the larger kind of topic itself. So everyone's favorite character, Miss Marvel, was after ruining the Inhumans and the Avengers and bankrupting a video game studio and having the movie that lost $200 million, they decided the best thing to do was to put her into the X-Men comics. And they had been running this event. You and I did a video on it where they rewrote giant size X-Men to put her in that. They continued through with a series of one shots, inserting her into the events of the Dark Phoenix and basically every other major X Men event. And at the end, they decided to essentially keep that actually happened, so the X Men remember her being a part of those events, even if like the general public doesn't. So they've essentially rewritten X Men history to make her a founding member of the X Men, or up in close in time of being that. It's interesting because retcons are nothing new to comics. I don't know that we've seen one quite that stupid, but it is something that's happened. And so I thought I'd just kind of kick it to you on this, Mike. For this particular event, you can address that one if you want, but just the notion of retcons across the board. What are your thoughts on how that's been handled for comic books? Do you think it's become something that's just destroyed continuity to give us the mess that we are? Like, how do you feel overall about that sort of storytelling technique that's done?
Well, my first question is why? I mean, for decades and decades, like you could have a superhero team and then somebody joins the team. Hooray, we've got a new member on the team. And you could
Mhm.
carry the story forward that way. What is so important about rewriting history to put this person where they weren't? And why does the writer feel that that has to happen in order for them to tell their stories going forward? I don't really understand that, other than why can't she just join the team now and she could be on the team from now going forward? It seems weird, and it goes back to this whole thing of when continuity becomes so messed up that you have to redraw, reinvent. It gets so muddy,
Mhm.
and I think that's where DC and Marvel are at right now, where they're struggling to say, "Hey, can we just like forget everything and start fresh?" And that's what you see in sort of like an absolute and ultimate. It's something that people have been calling for years. You and I certainly have. Darwin Cook, famously before us, was calling for it in the early 2000s. Like, look, guys, we just need to have a fresh slate. Um, so retcons are so problematic. They're so problematic. I mean, famously, the thing that comes to mind for me, because I just got off of San Diego and we did this whole, you know, reinvention of the Flash and how that helped. But they just reinvented the Flash. They
Mhm.
didn't make Barry Allen like the sidekick of Jay Garrick from 1940 on in,
Yeah.
inheriting the mantle in 1956. They just said, let's start fresh. That makes the most sense. I can't foresee the forefathers of the industry like Stan Lee and Julius Schwartz like going, well, let's pretend all these characters were really, um, you know, part of the past. They just created a new future. But they had a lot of creativity and at their disposal, giants like Jack Kirby and Carmine Infantino and great writers, like John Broome and others who could, pull these stories ahead and forge ahead with new characters with similar powers or what have you. Um, so what do you think about it?
So I can go the negative place that my brain typically would go on it would be when you ask the question why. I think it's so that Kamala Khan can matter, and these writers can't find a way to make that happen naturally. And so it's we'll literally rewrite freaking X-Men history and put her in there, and now she matters. And that, in all honesty, like you said, if they just had her join the team, she's gonna fail as a character the same way she did when they tried to make her, oh, she's the most important Inhumans character. And oh, let's do the Champions, and she's the most important character there. And oh, it's the Avengers game, and we're gonna make her the most important character there. It's a character people don't like. And so I think for why they did this, they can't get her to work. She's had multiple X-Men series since they decided, to make her a mutant, and all of them have been canceled in the same way because it's just not a remarkable character. And so I think a big reason why is we'll just force it into the story. I think the other portion of it too is like you pointed it out when they did stuff like Showcase with Barry, he was an addition to Jay Garrick, right? They didn't go back and go, hey, actually, the Flash, this comic right here in Flash Comics, that was Barry Allen. He just wore a different costume that day, and you didn't know. No, they went. Jay Garrick was just the Flash, and Barry's the legacy to that. I think they don't know how to create new stories that stand up to those past ones, and so I think they think, hey, we'll use nostalgia to get you in. We'll call it Giant Size X-Men. Look, the cover's almost the same, and oh, we're changing it a little bit. Isn't that zany? I think it's a lack of creativity and it's a lack of being able to get characters to work. And like one retcon that I've liked in comics, and it's not the best, but the story Hush, one of my favorite stories of all time. They retconned in that Batman Bruce Wayne had a childhood friend named Tommy Elliott who ends up being Hush. And while it's a little predictable in the story, that's a retcon I can deal with. We didn't have that Bruce Wayne was established that he had another best friend and we rewrote history. We basically just went into the past and kind of retconned, hey, there was this figure in his childhood that you haven't heard about until now. I just think it's laziness and I don't know, Mike, do you think some of it is that they don't know how to make these characters work the way they used to? Right? Because like Giant Size X-Men, you could have had that fail spectacularly. You could have had people going, wait, this isn't Cyclops and Jean and Beast and Iceman and Angel, the original five. What are we getting these new losers for with their different costumes? Instead, that worked. And that's why Wolverine and Storm and Colossus and Nightcrawler and all of them became as popular, if not more popular than the original ones. The same way that Barry became as popular, if not more popular, and probably more popular than Jay Garrick ever was. Do you think it's because now they don't know how to do that with these new characters? So that's what I would say. What do you think of that?
I would tend to go with the ever-present comic book conspiracy theory that seems to be getting more viable as the years wear on, that somewhere up in the vaunted offices of the where the bean counters and people who don't know comic books sit and dwell, that has been mandated that this character must have relevance because we have video games and movies planned. But didn't they already have a video game with her in it?
No, I mean when we talk about this specific one, if we do, I can just do a quick like minute and a half trail of who this
Did you
character's
have a
been.
video game that went bad?
Well, yeah. So basically, she starts off as an Inhuman character. She breaks out decently well, has a comic that sells okay. Like the first issue did good, but not amazing. They try to make the Inhumans a huge thing. That line fails. Her sales fall. They decide they're going to create a team called the Champions, which is an older team, but revive it with her as a main character with Miles. They put Mark Wade and Humberto Ramos on that book, a lot of promotion. That failed within a couple of years. So then the Avengers were the hot thing of the moment. They threw her into an Avengers comic book where she was an Avenger. That book didn't do very well. They decided then at this point it was time, hey, let's put her as one of the main characters in the Avengers $200 million video game. No T'Challa, no Hawkeye, no Scarlet Witch. No, we're putting Miss Marvel as one of the core six characters of the game, and a huge POV character. That 200 something million dollar video game bankrupted the company that she was in. They then decided, hey, you know what? We need to give her a Disney Plus TV series. That one didn't do well. In that Disney Plus series, they decided, hey, let's make her a mutant for some reason because, that's what we haven't done yet.
Wait, she's not even a mutant. That's the other
No,
thing.
yeah. So no, they retconned in the MCU that she's a mutant, and then so to keep content with the MCU because for some reason that thing needed to happen in comics, even though they'd ignored all the movies before. They rewrote her. Well, they wrote her into Spider-Man. She was killed off, and then she was revived because somehow she was a secret mutant that no one knew about. And since then, she's had multiple mutant comic books that have been canceled. So instead of just going, hey, people don't like this character, they decided, let's rewrite X-Men history and put her into it because she deserves this journey. And
Wow.
well, not to mention a $200 million Marvel movie with their own team, the Marvels, that lost about $150 million for Disney at the box office, too. I mean, it's just crazy that they've had that for this character, and now they're willing to rewrite. I mean, how long is it until the X-Men thing fails and we have she was the secret fifth member of the Fantastic Four? And I guess she's only got the Guardians of the Galaxy to ruin after that. I mean, at the end, she's going to start being an inhuman mutant Fantastic Four member who's an Avenger and a card carrying Guardians of the Galaxy person. I mean, it's just, or Herald of Galactus or something like that, too. I mean, it's just, I think we've gotten to a point with some of these new characters, and I think we're seeing this a little bit with Miles Morales, too, where look, Miles is popular in his own right, but they've made it now. We're like, no, we need to integrate him into Peter Parker's life. Like every Peter Parker has to have Miles as a part of his life. I think it's just poor writing, and they're trying to get these characters over in a way that like is unavoidable. They're trying to be like, no, dang it, you will accept this. I just it's just really interesting to see. Do you think this method they're taking? Do you think it's something that will ever work? Do you think this inevitably they'll just keep letting it fail? Why do you think this is like a bug that they have to keep doing? Like what is it about this thing that you think they're trying to do?
It's bewildering to me because, certainly after the first failure, I'd be very reticent to activate that property into another one. And certainly wouldn't want it a known failure or wouldn't want to insert it into a property that hadn't failed yet or
Hmm.
bring it down. I'd be very careful about, taking that character and, after it failed, I mean, you know, after it failed, maybe twice, I'd be like, okay, well, maybe it isn't time for this character right now, and we'll revisit it. Let's see what else we can do. That's the logical thing. So it makes no logical sense as to why they would keep going on it. Retconning in general, you know, you've we've all always said here that you just need to start from scratch
Yep.
because you can't retcon your way out of this. I mean, people have been trying for 20 years, and it ends up making it worse. So we end up, in the middle of a knot, and in trying to get out of the knot, we just tangle it up more. And that's about the best analogy that I can come up with for where we're at. And now it's like, we have at least DC who's really on the verge of considering like, hey, maybe we just need to, you know, put our flag in the ground and say we're starting from here.
Hmm.
And that makes logical sense. Trying to retcon and rescript and trying to make something work. It may have worked in the old days when you had the core group of guys like in the 70s and the 60s. You may have been able to get away with something like that because they didn't change continuity all that much back in those days. They kept and their stories were longer, so you got years and years to get accustomed to these newer characters that they'd insert. So, retconning something may have worked back then to where it doesn't work now because every, 2 to 4 months, you have new creative teams coming on and, hey, I've got a great idea. Let's try this. And, it just keeps turning and turning and twisting and twisting. And, you're stuck in this knot.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just a mess. And I think you can't. Retcons are so interesting in that rarely do any of them ever really work out. One that I enjoyed quite a bit, and I collected the comics as a kid, and it's probably because I was 6 or 7 when it happened. They did the whole Ben Riley thing in Spider-Man, where it
Oh,
was like,
yeah.
hey, the clone thing that happened, actually, the one you've been following ever since, that was the clone, and Ben was the real Peter Parker that you followed from these issues until that happened. And the whole
That
point
was weird.
attempt was to try to refresh Spider-Man. They felt like Spider-Man had gotten too bogged down. They were going to give the Peter you'd been reading a break and give you this new, fresh. And I like Ben Riley quite a bit. I enjoyed those comics. And Ben Riley's a decently popular example of sometimes where a character can connect with some audiences. But you know what happened? Peter Parker came back because as much as people liked Ben Riley, and he's more popular than most, people wanted Peter Parker back. They're like, this is a stupid retcon. Why are you doing this? And I think that's the thing that comic books have got to stop doing is these editorial offices or writers or whoever it is that keeps doing these things where it's, oh, it's a secret child of Wolverine's from the past, or he was Captain America's sidekick that you never heard about, or all these dumb things they keep trying to throw in there. We don't like them as fans because they're so transparently lazy. And I think that's why they don't work. When you look at the ones that have, at least there was attempt where you would look and go, okay, I get what you're doing, right? I think the Ben Riley thing, it wasn't that they were trying to make Ben Riley better than Peter Parker. It felt like they're like, you know what? We've kind of hit a creative dead end with Peter. This will let us do some fresh new storytelling. They didn't go back and go, actually, Ben Riley was all these last 30 years you loved. And so I think you can make it work, but you have to have a point. I think the point for sometimes some of these people is like, you don't like this character as much as I want you to like this character. So dang it, I'll make you like the character by writing them into events that they weren't a part of. And it's just, I think the other thing where this will inevitably lead and why I think they're doing this for this particular character with Miss Marvel, I think all of this is aimed so that they can have her be one of the first X-Men characters in the MCU. So that when we get the X-Men a few years from now, they can go, oh, it's comic accurate. Miss Marvel was one of the founding X-Men because of this really stupid comic we wrote in 2025. That's the only thing I could think of them doing this for. But it's just sad in that,
That's
one of
going
the
to
things.
really make some X-Men fans mad
Well, and it's I think
because
that's been what Marvel's been trying to do, and that like you look at what they did with Captain Marvel, where they just Captain Marvel, the popular one that got his own title, that had these great stories, they're just like, nope, we're just gonna retcon it that he never existed in this universe. And I think, or what he was, it was recast as a woman who had no powers and she was elderly or something. It was a disaster. But I think that's what they're trying to do. And what's weird is, last thing we'll kind of close this, Mike. I think sometimes people think it's just nostalgia. You guys don't accept these new characters because of the nostalgia for the past. I would supposition that it's because the new characters just aren't that well written. What if you had to say, is it more nostalgia and we just want what we want because we know it, or this stuff isn't as good? Like, where do you side? If you had to pick one side or the other, are we blinded by nostalgia, or is it just bad storytelling that they're doing now?
it's just not stories that I want to buy
Mhm.
personally. Um, I like the characters that I like, and I like them for my own personal reasons. And I've read them for years and loved them. They've given me lots of entertainment over the years. I'm very fond of a lot of these characters from Marvel and DC. And
Mhm.
the reason I'm not buying the comics is because I don't like the stories. And I have a feeling that that's the way it is. And we mentioned this on our one of our recent videos. It's not that we're tired of superhero stories. We're just not, we just don't like the stories that are being told right now. And that's a heavy blow, you know.
Mhm.
That's a heavy blow. But it's true, I think, for you as well, right?
Well, and I think the thing is, look, yes, Batman, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Daredevil, those characters hold a place in my childhood and in fandom for me that will always make it that those are the ones I want to see. Same thing for like Superman. What I will say though, what spits in the face of this idea that some folks say this, oh, fans are just too nostalgic and they don't accept anything new. Then why do most fans like Geiger? Why do most fans like Redcoat? Why, as much as I don't like the character, why has Spawn been such a successful character for so long? Invincible, all these these ones hit because they had something they were telling that fans wanted to read. And these new ones, the Miss Marvels, the Miles Moraleses, I'm not saying they have no fans. They just don't have enough fans for what they're trying to say these characters should be, or for the placement that Marvel wants them to have. And that it
And
kind of feels like they just want them to be bigger than they are. Go ahead, Mike.
and for fans of those characters, it's not like they have to go away. I mean, there are these tertiary characters that have been in and out of comics for decades that people have are fans of.
Hmm.
And they get their spin-off stories, their little 4 or 6 issue miniseries here and there, and that's where they belong. Trying them out there, and sometimes they hit it big, and sometimes they don't. And when they don't, you still supply your fans with a guest appearance in this book, a backup story here, a mini series there, and those heroes get to live on. You don't have to just ditch them entirely. If they have a dedicated fan base, like I know Miss Marvel does. I mean, the fact that she's a good character and she has fans, some fans, doesn't necessarily mean that she can be forced into mainline stories and make it work. It doesn't it doesn't have to be that way. And that's just the way it goes for some of these third tier characters, Booster Gold or Kite Man or
No, it can even be characters created by the greats. I mean, Ted Cord Blue Beetle has Steve Ditko as one of the
how about
creators of that
Plastic
character.
Man? You
Plastic
have
Man,
you have
Metamorph. I mean,
huge fans of Plastic Man,
great characters, but they don't have enough fans to sell a book. And the whole thing is the market decides what works and what doesn't. And I think that's the frustrating part that comic books are doing is they're trying to tell the market, no, you will accept this. It's like, no, they're
and
not.
then
And you
and
keep
then
failing.
what happens is you try and force that into a storyline of a bigger character. You end up bringing down that character's book. That's
Mhm.
not good either because you bought your Spider-Man book and you wanted a good Peter Parker story, and instead you got something else because you're really trying to force another character in there where that character should be a backup story. I know they really don't do backup stories now. Sometimes they do, but
No, but that would
miniseries.
be the way to use these characters is as old techniques like backup stories. Is if you really wanted them to be around still, hey, put an 8-page backup story in the back of a comic book like the Avengers or something that features that character. Don't rewrite the freaking Avengers to put that character in. And I think that's to kind of close it out. I think that's one of the things is comics is this weird place where they try to do this stuff. And that you and I are huge sports fans in the NFL, like, look, me and you don't like the Kansas City Chiefs, but you know what? People watch the Kansas City Chiefs. You and I don't like the Dallas Cowboys. You know what? People watch the Dallas Cowboys. And so every Sunday, the last 5, 7 years since Patrick Mahomes came around, you pretty much always get every Chiefs game and you get every Cowboys game. And for you and me, as a Raiders fan for you and a Bears fan for me, I wish I got every Bears game here in Texas the way that I have to deal with every Chiefs game. But you know what? The Bears aren't good enough and haven't earned that right to be on TV the way the Chiefs have, whether I like that or
That's
not.
a great analogy,
Same thing, baseball. There's a lot of national baseball games. I'm a huge White Sox fan. I don't get to see them much. You know what? The White Sox are a joke right now. And so, yes, I got to watch a lot of Dodgers games and stuff like that because the Dodgers are winning World Series and the White Sox are winning 50 games. And I think that's why we have to get this into comic books where it's like, look, guys, you keep trying to tell people that a market is there for these characters that isn't. And you have to stop because you're just hurting, as you said, you're hurting more and more to where Miss Marvel now is going to end up hurting the dang X-Men. And it's like, how did this inhuman character who has this like trail of destruction everywhere end up there? And after the X-Men, yeah, there's only a few more places for her to go.
Hey,
It's just sad.
I got news for them. If this was your grand design for the X-Men script for the future movie that's coming, there's still time to change the script. There's still plenty of time.
Hopefully, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you'd hope, man. You'd hope.
Yeah.
Who knows anymore? Um, Let us know. What do you guys think down
Okay.
below? What do you think of this retcon to put Miss Marvel into the past of X-Men? I know you and I did a video when this thing was announced where we thought this was what they were going
Right.
to do, and we ended up being right. And so it's interesting to see. But if there is anybody, again, we don't pretend to be the experts here. So we're just two guys giving opinions. If you think this is secretly brilliant, if this worked, if you're a huge fan, tell us. We're not here to tell you you're stupid or you're wrong or anything like that. Like, we'd love to hear the perspective, as always. Thank you guys for watching. We hope you have a great rest of your day. God bless you, and we'll catch you in our next video.
Thanks, everybody.